Now these are really important terms as well. So you have an agonist is the main muscle doing the movement. In that example of a bicep curl, right, then the bicep muscle, the muscle on the front of the arm, that's the one that's doing most of the work. So that is the agonist muscle, the prime mover muscle. Antagonist is the opposite muscle, so that's the back of the arm, and those muscles are called your tricep muscles. Okay? So when I lift something like that, this muscle is working as the agonist, and these muscles are opposing it as the antagonist. Okay? You then have synergists. These prevent movement of the intervening joint when an agonist is a biaxial muscle. Okay, what the heck does that mean? So, bicep crosses two joints. So it crosses my shoulder and it crosses my elbow. So if I lift a weight here, then this part of my bicep is going to get shorter. If this part of it isn't stable, then my shoulder's going to drop. So my shoulder needs to be stabilised by a whole bunch of other muscles to keep this pit in place, so that then my arm can lift from the elbow. So when you walk and when you run, it's exactly the same. So you've got muscles in your foot that will lift your foot, but then you need the muscles of your hip to be able to control your leg position, so that when you hit the floor, you're in the right place. Yeah? So everything's always working together, and they're called synergist muscles. Fixators, they steady different parts of the body while movement occurs distally. So we know what distal means now. So if I've got bicep curl and it's quite heavy and I'm lifting that weight, yeah, if my muscles in my upper body didn't contract at all, then I would just lean. So what muscles do you think would have to contract to keep my spine upright? Which part of the body? Yeah, good. Yeah, so the muscles on the side here. Yeah. So if I'm here like this and I'm going to fall there, then these muscles on the side will have to contract to keep my spine upright, so that I stay in centre. And those muscles will be fixator muscles. They're stabilising the position of my body so that I can do movement. Let's have a look at this guy here. I need to identify what movements are occurring at his joints. All he's doing is kicking the ball. When you analyse this, it's crazy what goes on. What planes of movement are they occurring in? And if you know some muscles, that's great. What muscles are responsible for the movements? Yeah. And so if we focus on this right leg, what's happening at his hip? Flexion. It's going into flexion, yeah. So the angle of the hip is shortening, yeah? What plane of movement is that? Sagittal plane, okay. So that's gone into the sagittal plane. But then, if you look at the, that's probably pure sagittal. But you may think as well, it's a bit of frontal, because it's gone across the body as well. But that might be just because of his upper body is rotated so much, yeah. So if you unwound his upper body and just had a look at his leg, then it may be pure sagittal, but it's probably a bit of frontal as well. What's happened to his knee? It's extended, yeah. So his knee's extended. That's increased the angle of the joint, and then his foot.
It's plantar flexion.
Yes, it's not in neutral, is it? It's not in a neutral position. It's slightly plantar flex. The toes are pointing a little bit. So as he's hit that football, he's opened up his ankle and it's plantar flex the joint. Good. So what's happened to his spine? Yeah, so his spine's rotated. So that's gone through that transverse plane. Yeah. Yeah, this is the interesting thing about where you get power from your body. It's not just like kicking a ball. It's not just from the knee. It's everything winding up, coming through to hit it. This left leg, hip, probably a little bit extended, yeah. And then the knee, yeah. So the knee's gone into flexion, and the ankle, it looks probably fairly neutral. I don't think there's much happening there. This left shoulder, what's happened to it?
It's rotation.
Yeah, so you've got a bit of internal rotation and a bit of adduction. Yeah, so it's gone across the body. Yeah, very good. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit confusing, because that in the shoulder, that kind of adduction is called horizontal adduction. So there's a specific name for it, but that's just being picky. So that's adduction. What's happened to his head? Some people say it's rotated, but if you have a look, his head hasn't actually rotated. His head is still, but it's his body that's rotated around. Yeah, so it makes it look as if he's turned his head to the left. Now this is an interesting thing, because when people come in with pain in their neck and they go, I can't turn my head to the left, and then you say, okay, keep your head in that position, don't move your head, keep looking at the wall, and now move your body around. And they're able to do that. Now what position is their head in? Left rotation. So it's exactly the same movement, but because they didn't think about the movement that they're doing, which is that which hurts, they got into the same position but just in a different way, and it doesn't hurt. It's fascinating. Okay. If you bring your head back, does that hurt your neck at all? Has anybody got any symptoms in their neck? No? Okay. And if you rotate to one side, how does that feel? Yeah, feel that? Okay. So that's a test that we would do for a facet joint irritation, because you're extending the neck, which then closes up those joint spaces, and then rotate to one side, which then further closes up those spaces. So if you've got a bit of an irritation around the joints, and that sometimes hurt. So how did we get there? We went into extension and then rotation. Yeah. So this time try rotation, then extension. Does that feel any different? And if it feels different, yeah, okay, so that may hurt some of you, but for some of you it might feel easier, okay? But you're in exactly the same position, you just got there in a different way. So we can use that as part of rehabilitation, because we want to restore joint movement for people. We want to make them move a little bit better, so you can do your manual therapy, and then you say, right, okay, an exercise for you, because that hurt you in that position, but we know that if you do it that way, it doesn't hurt. So we're just going to get you to do that. And we're going to mobilise those joints in that direction, which gets you in exactly the same place, but just in a pain-free way. People who limp. Got people limping into a clinic and they're walking forward. Okay, you get them to walk backwards, and often they don't limp. And it's because they haven't learned to limp backwards.